So thank you so much, everybody, for the Vijay and Cygnus, and welcome once again to everyone who's here. So I really hope this would be a little more interactive, and I'm not very much of a fan of a lecture, but okay. So I think today's topic it is very relevant. Sometimes it seems a very simple topic, but very complicated to implement. And so, therefore, in this in this whole interaction, I think let us try to let our minds work on how do we do this in our own context. So, the whole perspective, the topic, of course, is youth, media, and the common good of youth, and the role of the church. Um, but then I think why I put the title as from juggling to joining because it is, I think, also about how do we ourselves and, of course, enable the youth from juggling to joining to becoming part of a community. And so, just a little background when we talk about youth, we are dealing with almost four generations currently, as of 2026. Four generations that is, the millennials, where I fall in, people born between 80s and 90s, and then the Gen Z that is born between 97 to 2012. Generation Alpha, that was in the last 12 years. Those were born between 13 to 25. And now, last year onwards, we have entered another generation. That is Generation Beta. And so I think the reason earlier generations usually had a gap of 20, 25 years, but now it has become barely a window of 10, 12, 13 years because within this span of 10, 12 years, so much changes. Like, for example, my generation also, if I am to say, was born in a purely real world. But then somewhere, I think when I was turning about 10 years of age, no, maybe 5 years of age, I saw those mobile phones come in, computers came in. And so it was in my generation, I saw the transition happening from a real world to a virtual world, where by the time I reached college, assignments became on the computer, on the laptop. Uh, but then the next generation was born, the Gen Z, I think, was more or less born with at least TV and computer. But when you talk about Gen Alpha, they are the generation that were born with smartphones. And now the ones that are being born, the current generation, are being born with artificial intelligence. So a 2-year-old child will know artificial intelligence, how to create content, how to create images, how to design things. So even using a PowerPoint presentation on laptop will be very outdated for them. So I think that is the reason why we have a shorter gap. Now with that, I think comes the whole challenge, but also the scope. They are called the juggling generation because they are overwhelmed. So I currently work at an institute where we have students, and so in each batch we have about 100 students from all over the country. And these days I'm doing one-on-one interactions with them. And so I mean, we don't have the time. Otherwise, if I were to show you the Excel sheet of the comments I get from them, most of them say there are two problems they struggle with. One is overthinking, and one is overwhelmed because it's the juggling generation. They are juggling between the older things, of course, that is your responsibilities, family, education, money, health, all of that. But then now it is also technology, it is also AI, it is also where what to use. There are so many laws, policies. So that is why the juggling generation, because they are carrying multiple things on their shoulders. They might be going to the hospital, taking their parents for a checkup, but at the same time, they will get a video call. At the same time, they will have to go to AI and maybe draft something and send it back on WhatsApp. So that's the juggling generation, where they are at the same time navigating a virtual and real world. They are pulled between system versus calling. That is, the current system where we're talking about unemployment. We are seeing there are mass layoffs happening. We are seeing people are not getting jobs. Sometimes I remember in the previous batch here, we had a girl from IIM, MBA from IIM, did not get a job. Still unemployed, even up to 6 months after finishing from IIM and MBA. So, so that is the system that is evolving currently. People are getting placed in organizations like Google, Amazon, and then getting losing their job within 6 months, within 8 months, versus a calling. So that is where they are pulled between that deeper spiritual calling, where they know maybe they want to serve, but then they have responsibilities, so they are forced to take up a corporate job because it will pay better. I was just reading an article in Times of India day before yesterday, and that article talks about the new definition of middle class is monthly salary between 30,000 to 3 lakhs. That means somebody earning between 30,000 up to 3 lakhs a month is middle class. So, I mean, that is where the challenge is happening. So now 3 lakhs a month, obviously, if I do social work, I will not earn. So I'm forced to do a job in a corporate environment, in a corporate office, or a job that pays me a business or something. And so that is where they are pulled between. I mean, I encounter many youngsters who want to do social work, they want to go and do on ground work with the marginalized, but the finance is the challenge. And therefore, then with that, this generation has a silent search. That is, they are seeking truth and God. Most of the youngsters I see, they seek truth, like they are seeking peace, they are seeking joy, they are seeking a good health, a good life. They want to work, they want to earn, they want to travel. So they are no more that dull and dark generation who is very happy inside the house. They want to explore the world, they want to learn new things. So and that is where even if they don't use a very churchy language, which is a very common thing, you see the younger generations today in church, they will sit maybe for adoration, they will maybe plug in and listen to worship, attend a gospel band, but they may not be able to recite maybe a memorare or maybe the Angelus, or so that is what it is. So, but then that silent search is there. And so, like I said, the youth today, they want to be missionaries. They want to work, they want to serve, they want to love. But the question is how to do that. And I think that is where all of us who are at a little more senior age, or at a position where you need to mentor the youth, it comes in to help them how to. Now, I think this is when we talk about the role of media, we are in a time where we are talking about something like the Netflix catechesis. Now, why do I call it Netflix catechesis? Is because you would find a lot of youngsters today getting catechesis from Netflix, YouTube, Spotify, from these softwares. I know a lot of youth that have subscribed to Spotify podcasts, that have subscribed to different channels on Spotify. They follow different pages on YouTube. They are watching series, movies on Netflix. And so they are getting a lot of formation, much more than the sermons. So, of course, Sunday sermons were there, but then this is where they feel that it speaks to their heart via stories, via music, via movies, via series. And so, um, I think here the challenge which comes for us is, one is the internet is providing a lot of data. There's a lot of information, it is endless. But then that is where, as animators, as priests, as religious, our role is to provide the wisdom and accompaniment, which was always the church's unique gift of how do we accompany them and make them understand what is real, what could be fictional. And so that is where our role comes. And there, bringing media in as a lens, because the youth today understand justice, they understand climate. We all know recently, I mean, I don't want to name, but the recent movements that have emerged. We've heard of presentations happening in the capital. We are seeing the news. So that sense for justice, the sense for climate, the sense for the dignity through social media, it is all there. And so it is not much about textbooks. I hear it very commonly from the youngsters today that, um, more than a reading, I mean, more than just reading and uh, understanding things as a theoretical concept, they want to be involved in doing things. Uh, and so there comes our role as a strategic collaboration for this common good, and which I say is from the whole ideology of warning the youth to training. Now, why I say that? 30 years ago, when I asked my parents or my grandparents, they always share stories that revolved around warning. We were told, no, don't do this. We were told, don't do that. There are consequences. So if you don't go to church on Sunday, this will happen. If you don't do that, that will happen. So that is how it was more of a warning based work. But now I think what we are moving to, or rather we need to move into, is training. How to train, or how does the church move from fear based warnings to skill based training that empowers the youth for service? So, how do we take them perhaps with us in our social work? How do we train them on using technology and media? So, for example, teaching the youth to use AI tools, but for things like parish outreach, to map the community, to use AI to understand, even in a parish, that if my parish is in this locality, who are the people that live in that locality, what is their background, a little socio geographical, economic understanding. Then using media to spark curiosity in the youth about faith, giving them this food for thought. Um, I will share some examples in going forward. And then the virtual chapel, that is teaching the youth to pray and find genuine community in the digital spaces and not just consume content. Now, how does this happen? There are a lot of examples. For example, on YouTube, you will see a lot of youngsters engage on comments, on chats over there on YouTube. Uh, they happen to connect with people there. The same is happening on social media. A lot of youngsters follow reels on social media, especially Instagram. Then they reach out to the person, they form groups, they form communities. And so it is using these digital spaces and the media and the technology to explore also how to enhance my skill. So if I'm a little curious in AI and maybe making reels, how do I use that to research on some topic and come up with some catechetical content or some content on a social issue or a social topic? Then comes the mentor led model, the mentor leader model, where I would say that the digital service and an intergenerational collaboration has to happen. That means what the youth bring and what the elders have, how do we collaborate that? So we all know the youth are, of course, very fluent with technology. They have a good knowledge of different platforms. So while you and I might think, okay, MS PowerPoint is the best way to make a presentation, they will have not even ChatGPT. There are newer softwares and platforms today. The olden days, we would use, for example, Photoshop to design content, but today they have Canva, they know so many others. So they have this fluency and the knowledge and understanding of technology. Similarly, they are very creative in developing content. The skills to create content with creativity is there, whether it is through doodling, it is through comics. I mean, endless digital based skills they have. And then, because of technology, they have this peer to peer trust and reach. They are able to reach out to masses, whether it's through Instagram, whether it is through making vlogs and putting it on social media. So, that is what they have. Whereas the elders, now, when I say elders, it is, of course, the religious leaders in the church, but then also, other than the religious, also seniors, elders who have the understanding of the faith, who have the theological grounding, understanding of scripture, of the knowledge of the rituals. Then they have the lived experience, the ability to discern, and spiritual accompaniment. So when this is put together, is where I think something like the digital service hub, for example, could evolve. Now, what is this? It is somewhere where you use these tools to organize offline community services, that is bridging the virtual and the real world. So where you sit together and the people who have the knowledge and expertise share the perspective. Let's say, for example, in a parish, maybe the priest, the religious could there share, okay, maybe if today is this Sunday, let's say we have just finished, I mean, we have just come out of Easter season, and so what are those days about? And then we give them, and then we know they will come up with creating that content on social media, on technology. So that is where a collaboration emerges. Um, I know in some of the places where I've myself been involved, these kinds of things come. For example, in the Holy Week, youth wanted to make a lot of technology based content. And so then they sat with the priest, they sat with some elders, said, no, okay, you tell us the insights, you review the content we have created. So that is where we need to think of ways how to collaborate. Uh, and the final call to action or the whisper of hope is, I think, the deeper understanding, like I said, that God is at work within them. Our media collaboration, it is only going to help them hear this whisper in a noisy world. Now, what is important here for you and me is to allow them to make these mistakes. Because unless the freedom is there to make mistakes, they will not learn. So, like I said, let them make content, but then say, okay, hey, I'm there. Can you bring your content to me so that I at least go through it and then you can put it out there? So, for example, I know my own parish, my parish priest does that. He has given absolute liberty to all the youth to create any digital content. But only one thing he said is, you show it to me once before you put it on any platform. And so he goes through it, sees it, and then says, okay, it is fine, or okay, you need to change this. So that is where we accompany them, we don't abandon them. And similarly, the question, will we walk with them in this digital desert? Because again, it is about accompaniment, because we might still be able to balance a real world and a virtual world, but then like the newer generations, almost everything is about technology. Like I know I still um, I still write notes in a diary, I still make to-do lists in a diary. But then I know the younger generations, my own 16-year-old sibling tells me, why don't you use this app? Why don't you download that app? And that app will even send you a reminder. It will even give you a notification. And you will not have to worry of forgetting your diary somewhere and opening the diary to check whatever was I supposed to do. So, but then that also creates a desert in them, because if we've all noticed it, I'm sure, they are only engrossed in that one device, at least maybe 17 to 17 hours in a day. And so, in that desert, how do we accompany them and help them transform into a disciple? That is coming to a point which will happen only with time and age, also, where they will, okay, one day perhaps sit with a real Bible, not an app, and or maybe sit with a real diary and write their own reflections on the scripture or on a life experience. So I think these are some deeper questions for us to reflect on. Now, what this engagement looks like, I think we need to have also increase our quality when we are trying to work on a common good with them. So youth want to be missionaries, okay, but then to make them understand or to be involved, like I said, in a way that it's not about uh, how many likes, but how many lives it touches. Now, this is something new again emerging with the digital generation, that everything is measured in terms of how many views, how many likes, how many followers. And so they don't even have that lens in the mind anymore of whether a heart will be touched or not, whether how many lives will be touched. And so we need to even inculcate that value in them of understanding that a parish's digital presence, or in a parish, I'm taking it as an example because that is the closest community we all belong to. It is about how many lives you can touch. Now, I mean, some concrete examples. For example, the youth today understand the SDGs. They know about UN, they know about the Sustainable Development Goals. But then, how do we, as teachers, as mentors, as animators, help them relate to understanding that when we talk about quality education, how can we do that through digital faith formation? So, quality education also means faith formation. So, but then how do we use technology to help youngsters build faith, build a community, build a deeper understanding of scripture? Like I often share with the youth when I talk to them on these subjects, that you have to understand it also as a story, as history, and similarly, when we talk about peace and justice, enabling these youngsters to understand this SDG 16 in the context of becoming digital peacemakers, creating such content that would spread peace, that would spread hope, that would spread positive thoughts out there in the society, especially in the current context. We know you open any news channel, you are seeing some Middle East country being bombed, you are seeing bombs falling, you are seeing people dying in Gaza, you are seeing children malnourished and famished. So amidst all of that, to teach the youngsters that peace and justice is not only just talking about it, but okay, can I create some good content instead of only showing dying children that will spread out some hope also out there? And so I think that is where we need to think of creative ways of, let's say, how do we link our parish or our institute or the congregation's digital strategy to the UN SDGs? Because then that makes the youngsters today understand that, okay, faith has a global relevance. I'll take the very recent example of what one of the presidents told Holy Father, that politics and church is separate. Of course, faith and politics is separate, but then faith also is about, I mean, these are all terms. So the youngsters today don't even understand these are terminologies. But at the end of the day, as a Christian, or the gospel values, or the mission of Jesus was also to teach society how to live, what is right and wrong. So that global relevance or the social relevance is something I think which is very important for us to inculcate in the youngsters. That okay, when we are talking about peace and justice, we call Jesus Prince of Peace, but then that also means talking about wars. That also means talking about places where peace can be encouraged. Similarly, when you talk about education, we all know. I mean, Jesus was called teacher. That is one of the prime missions of the church. So in the similar way, when SDG, when UN or the world is talking about quality education, what does it mean from a Christian lens? What does it mean to impart education, to impart knowledge? So that is the kind of, I think, collaborative way we need to think, so that especially the younger ones, I mean, now those who are in school today understand that these are not two isolated worlds, the church and social or sociology or the social issues, but they are interlinked. uh, Examples like the life of Mother Teresa, of how uh, faith put into action. So these, I think, are some areas where we need to really think of creative ways to make it more relevant, especially to the younger ones. Somebody like me, okay, today understands because it is years of reflection and understanding. But then somebody who's in fifth, sixth class would might always think, oh, right, what the president said is very true. Pope should stay out of social and political issues. So I think that is where our mission also needs to go one step forward. And therefore, with that, the new pulpit today for the technology of the digital generation is things like reels, podcasts, binge-worthy faith. Now, a few examples here, but there are many other examples. For example, The Chosen series. I'm sure most of us have heard about it. There is a reason why it has impacted so many people, why it has caught the attention of so many people, because it does not lecture. It is a more humanized version of the life of Jesus. It shows those candid moments of conversation and emotion, maybe falling sick, maybe getting hurt. And so that humanized version is what makes the faith more relevant. Otherwise, I know at least my own generation who did not have technology in my childhood would imagine reading Jesus walking on water like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm talking about the imagination. So everybody would imagine it in a different way. I remember having this conversation with my friends in school, and some thinking, okay, it might have been a glacier. Some saying, oh, it might have been the salt sea. Some saying, oh, it must be the Dead Sea. And so, though, because it's open to imagination. And so, or I remember once one of my friends asking me that did Jesus' apostles never fall sick on one of the journeys? Did they never have a stomach upset or a heat stroke? And then what would they do? And I mean, very relevant perspective. So that is what Chosen shows. And so that is why it has drawn a lot of people to understanding it in a reality, in a real perspective. And so now, what could we do with such things? So, for example, with Chosen, I know a lot of places are doing it. We could, for example, organize these it's called watch parties. It's basically getting the youngsters and children together on one Sunday morning or afternoon in church, or in some space, a school. It could be in the institution. Bring them together, you play it on a screen, on a TV together, and so everybody watches one entire episode together. And so maybe every Sunday you play one episode, they watch it together, they will discuss it, they will reflect on it, ask questions about it. So that is again a way of not just teaching, but also a place where when we are involved, religious is sitting with them, we listen to each other, we will clear a lot of doubts, and that is when natural questions will come. Similarly, something like encouraging, for example, the youth to take over the digital spaces of the parish or the institution. So I know a lot of places have done it, but again, an idea of, let's say, the Instagram account, asking the youth, why don't you create an Instagram account for the parish and you manage it, or you create a YouTube page for the parish and you manage it. So that will give them the space to also utilize their time, their um, hobbies, their digital skills, to create content, put it up there, rather than getting diverted into the wronger spaces of technology. Similarly, we know youth multitask, and so encouraging things like podcasts, worship music, digital accompaniment, so that when they are traveling, studying, working, or in those in between moments of life, juggling between different things, they know that, okay, even if I don't have my parents or a priest, but okay, I have probably this particular series on the app. I can watch this series on Netflix. I can listen to this podcast, especially podcasts and worship music, because I know it is impacting a lot of people. And it we have more scope of just telling the youngsters about it. That, okay, why don't you follow this podcast by this priest? Because he talks about maybe relevant issues. And so even if you and I are not there, we at least know there is a digital companion or an audio companion with them in such moments where they could turn to. And now what we must do, like I said, I think we need to curate. Now, we need not compete. So what I mean is we don't need a Catholic Netflix, but then we simply need to maybe curate only a bucket list, curate a list or a resource bank of existing resources. So let's say it could be as simple as maybe making an Excel file or a PDF of so something which I have done. Uh, I have one document somewhere where you let's say you have a list of all the series and movies on such matters, right from the life of Moses to Noah to Abraham, and then the apostles and Mother Mary and John the Baptist. So you curate one list of that. Then you could curate resources or a list of, there are the different apps that exist about faith, about Bible studies, about catechesis. Similarly, uh, YouTube pages, or some people that create content, Instagram pages, and only share it with these groups. So let's say a priest shares it with the parish community, with the youth in the parish. A principal shares it with the youth in the school. It need not even be all Christian. It could also be some of those, like for example, Laudato Si. I know a lot of non-Christian youngsters who followed these Laudato Si pages and websites and gained a lot of insights. They got involved with campaigns, they got involved with online activities and competitions on Laudato Si, and understood this whole climate understanding from a different perspective. Because the secular world only talks about carbon, but then they understood, okay, no, it is about many more things. It is also about uh, maybe the lives that are at stake with the use of wrong uh, environmental things. So that is how I think we could curate lists, curate resource banks, and share it with them. Similarly, create more creators. Like I said, every parish has these budding 10-year, 11-year, 12, 13-year-old youngsters who are very enthusiastic. My own parish, one boy walked up to me and said, for one of the occasions, if I'm not wrong, Christmas, I think that I would love to do the photography and live telecast it on YouTube. And then we had a discussion on it, and we said, yeah, definitely. So, I mean, these kind of things. So, you will have these teenagers, youngsters who are very enthusiastic about YouTube, about making podcasts, about making reels. So, give them a little theological foundation and then step back. Let them create freely. Like I said, let them create content and come back to you, show it to you, okay, father, sister, or uncle, auntie, whatever. Just see and let me know whether anything is right or wrong in it. I know I myself was involved with one such project where I would create the content and then I would share it with one senior auntie of the parish and with the parish priest. They would go through it and then make changes, suggestions, edit, and then say, okay, good to upload. So that is what equip creators. And then create these digital safe spaces. For example, we could use WhatsApp, we could use Telegram, not just for announcements, but for real talk sessions. let's say, creating groups, creating communities where these youth could come together, where they know they are part of it, creating these opportunities to have a chat. So let's say very random examples. It is, I think, for all of us to think creatively. Let's say a Sunday evening, half an hour, a Saturday evening, half an hour. We pick up a talk on how was my week with the family. I mean, this week, how was my the whole week go with the family? And so everybody starts sharing. So those will become spaces where they will start sharing. They will know, okay, I have a online community, at least a WhatsApp group where I can share about things. Gradually, they will make real friends from digital. They will go into forming real friendships. And so we need to come up with these because there are real challenges. I know, we all know youngsters today may be too occupied with so many things. And so expecting them to maybe spare a Sunday afternoon or a morning to come and be in a church or somewhere for 5 hours and we organize a seminar, they may not be practical. But we could do an online, a Google Meet or a Zoom like that. So that is where we need to create these digital safe spaces. And with this, I have a question. It would be nice if you could put in the chat box. What do you think? Which of these two is whispering hope to a 19-year-old today? So you could put your comment in the chat box, maybe that even if you yourself look at this, what seems more interesting to look at, or what seems more appealing, what seems to offer more information out of these two images on the screen. So I think the answer is pretty obvious to most of us. Uh, Definitely, we earlier had notice boards, but then today, Instagram, WhatsApp, these are becoming spaces. So uh, I think what is important is that we don't invite them into the older version of the world, but then we need to show up in their world. And again, I think a major uh, caution for all of us would be not as censors but collaborators, uh, because that is how the digital space is. It's important for us to also understand these smaller things. Of sometimes it's like I remember now, like I said, with the good will come the bad also. So we encourage youngsters to watch maybe these movies and audiovisual content on Netflix. But then with my own brother, for example, I realized with that he's also getting exposed to several other things because Netflix does not only have the good content, but there are also hostile, violent, uh, inappropriate content over there. But then that is how it is. And so it is not going to be practically possible to pull them out of that world. But then if we are able to teach them the ethics, the right and wrong, I think that is where our work is. And so I think that is what all my sharing was about. The PPT is already there. I can share it. Uh, but I'm open to questions, interaction, whatever thoughts might be coming to your mind. And
So thank you, Percival. So thank you for your wonderful sharing regarding this topic, and it was really very much inspiring. And of course, I am listening to you for the second time. I was there in Jalandhar also. So thank you so much. So I invite our guest there on screen. Uh, so you can ask your any something doubt or anything want to more on certain points. You can call him, and you can unmute your mic and you can talk to our friend Percival.
Father Vijay, I would just like to add something here for all of us, especially because I see majorly religious sisters and fathers. This whole topic of digital outreach, I know for many of us, it sounds like a very fascinating topic because we look at it from an academic perspective. It opens up a lot of ideas and all in our mind. But I think at the same time, it's very important for all of us. I mean, all in this current meeting, this group here, to understand this whole technology space, digital space more deeply, understand AI more deeply. I mean, I will just throw some of the terms which you could note down and later go read about it. Understand prompt engineering more deeply. So this whole concept of algorithms, social media algorithms, the whole concept of user interface, because these are the things that, like you said, of course, the youth know about technology. They know the digital spaces, but they don't know the pros and cons and the background challenges with it. For example, um, the youth don't understand how social media algorithm works. So maybe one day out of curiosity, I search for one topic in my Instagram page on I go and search for it. After that, the algorithm, Instagram will show me only that content. So then I get caught up in that. They many of them get caught up in that. It becomes like a vicious circle. So I once maybe went and searched for, let's say, romance. Then my Instagram is showing me everything on romance only, and and then without, and I don't realize with time my mind is all filled with romance only. So same thing happens. I know a lot of youngsters today struggling with this part with regards to philosophy, because initially they find it very soothing to read these philosophy, these quotes, on social media. But then after 2 years, 3 years, they are only filled with quotes. Then they have lost the sense of imagination, lost the sense of reality. Similarly, with the net with prompt engineering, why I said prompt engineering, AI. Now, I remember sharing this. We of course I take this class also here on AI and ethics, but of it's easy to use AI today for everything. But then it understanding how the prompts are generated, how that influences our own thinking, later how that AI would some and lead to a point where I will not even use my mind anymore. Like I see this very common struggle with youngsters, and we warn all the students especially that if you stop using PowerPoint before you have learned it, it's okay. Maybe at our age, we don't use PowerPoint now, we use ChatGPT because we have used PowerPoint for at least, I mean, somebody for 10 years, 20 years. And so now if I'm using a software, okay, because I know the foundation very deeply. But somebody who's never used directly using AI will never be able to reason or have the logic of uh, how should this particular presentation look like, or how this point is to be conveyed. So similarly with prompts, a lot of youngsters I know just very vaguely keep putting things in AI, which they don't realize their own algorithm will get so tuned that it will. So this one particular youth came to me and had fallen into this, I would say again, a vicious cycle. So AI started psychoanalyzing the student, this particular boy, and he started putting random. Okay, now tell me how should I? Okay, now tell me what do you think about me? And so after that, every time he would do some work on AI, AI would give a psychological reflex that today you are doing this, it seems you are doing it half-heartedly. Today you are doing this, you seem frustrated. And it started disturbing this person's mind and peace so much, because okay, today I feel I was in a good mood, but AI says no, you seem depressed. And so, I mean, even to understand prompt engineering, and then I had to obviously with this particular boy explain that that is how prompts work, because this happened with me. My articles, or whenever I write something, it has always three parts. One is facts, in which I always put numbers, data. It has an anecdote, it will have anecdotes and a story. So I remember this one time I put an article in ChatGPT to review the grammar, and it at the end gave me this comment that hey Percival, this time you have not put a story in your article. Were you not in the mood? Maybe I will add a story for you. And no, I mean, I was so that's when I realized, and I was not just fascinated, but I realized that, oh, that means AI, ChatGPT has also now understood my style of writing. And so it is now able to copy my style of writing also. That means probably if tomorrow somebody else puts an article in ChatGPT and says, write it in Percival Holt style, it will put anecdotes, it will put a story, it will put that whole flow of my style of writing and give. And so I mean, these are things I teach the youngsters also, you're the students, that you have to be careful because your originality will get lost. So these are things the youngsters don't realize of how dangerous an algorithm could be. How if everything happens on a virtual world, a lot of youngsters today, they say I am very comfortable chatting but not having a conversation. I will write this to you in a message. We need to have maybe a conflict on something, or maybe an argument on something. We will do it on WhatsApp, not face to face, because if your expressions change, if your tone goes high, I might start crying. So I'd rather do it on chat. So these, like I said, small but very critical. So I have met some youngsters, and it's very serious. It's actually gone to the extent of a psychological problem where they are very expressive on chat. They will put emojis, they will crack jokes, but face to face, they're not even able to speak two lines. They start shivering, they get anxiety, they become very conscious. So, I mean, so of course, like I said, with digital outreach comes also, like I said, no, accompanying with them, encouraging them to use the spaces, but then also keeping the balance of the reality of the content. Today, for example, I know a lot of people think uh, uh, it's not new. Even when Passion of Christ movie came, everybody thought, oh, that is exactly how it might have happened. Then now Chosen came, everybody thinks, oh, must be the exact story. So even making them realize, okay, no, there will be some element of fiction in it. What could be real? What could not be real? So I even just sparking that thought in their mind to don't buy everything you see online, I think is somewhere where this digital outreach, when we talk about it, is not just encouraging but also preparing them to understand these realities, which also has its repercussions in academics and work also. I remember meeting a group of youngsters who have just passed out of college, and they said not one of them had ever worked on MS Word. Not exaggerating, not one had worked on MS Word, because they said our entire childhood, I mean, our entire life, it was all on WhatsApp. It is all on apps. So my whole communication takes place on Instagram, WhatsApp, these applications. So I've never written a letter in MS Word. I've always written an email. So you're getting it. So they don't know how to work on MS Word. So I mean, so these are some things. I mean, very small, but then uh, I think that we need to be also cautious ourselves. The more senior and I think elder we get, to also uh, uh, I think enlighten the youngsters about these things.
Thank you, Mr. Percival. Actually, glad to hear from you for the second time. Very eye-opening, and especially you spoke last about this algorithm and the ChatGPT pattern, AI pattern of thinking. Actually, I think somewhat we are also getting into. I I been happy if many people were here to listen to you, because even we tend to scroll, and it happens that you get into the same thing. You don't find, like, you want to shift your mood but you are unable to shift. So this algorithm thinking of reels and shorts, I think we also need to work, and how we can shift that, or how we can change this algorithm of even Instagram reels and YouTube shorts. If you notice, sometimes we don't want same thought but it keeps coming. So you could show us also how to do it. And this AI pattern of thinking, it is very important for the young people to make them understand this is a pattern of thinking, not really a human being actually thinking with you. When I was reading Pope Leo's encyclical, he very clearly says in chapter 3 this thing. I also just that wanted to talk to people, so I read through. So yes, that we need to make young people to understand. And also, when they leave memory, is it important to leave all the memory to the AI? That also we must teach them. Thank you so much, Mr. Percival. So very inspiring to listen to you, and I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, so sister, yeah, that is very true. Pseudo forming due to digital spirituality, that is very true. Uh, so what is also the risk, which Pope talks about in the encyclical, also of getting detached from reality. So imagining only that as what I see in a movie, for example, or what I see in digital content only, and not being able to, like I said, relate it with emotions. So I remember writing an article recently on this and talking about when you do it in person, you are also at the same time experiencing emotions, expressions, body language, an environment. Maybe the rain has an influence, maybe the clothes have an influence, the color has an influence. So there is a it's in a lived experience, in a real space. But when you're doing it only even if it's only watching a Netflix series or only YouTube pages and podcasts, it is detached from a reality. You're not discussing with people, you're not experiencing it in their context. That, okay, maybe then something like that was said, but then in today's context, how are people living that particular same situation? So that is true. Pseudo forming is true, and then people tend to become too idealistic. Only, okay, like I remember there was this, we all must have somewhere encountered when Passion of Christ came. Everybody thought, okay, no, it has to be that intense, in the sense of, it had, what do you say, that when I say I am willing to sacrifice, I should also be willing to go through things of that extent. But then to also make people understand, or I know now with Chosen also there are one or two parts of it. For example, it shows about Thomas having a girlfriend, and all the way to marriage, and then she dies. And so I remember a lot of youngsters coming and asking, "Oh, is that true?" And I said, "Well, it is nowhere written in the Bible. It may be true, maybe not. We don't know. Nobody knows whether who married, who had a spouse later or not." But then what I'm trying to say is that is where the relation with reality. So that is where pseudo formation could happen. Um, and also, of course, because it is easier. So I think, but that is where we need to accompany them, have maybe conversations on this. Uh, I know some people, especially some priests in the sermons, talk about this. They talk about chosen. They talk about. So even I myself, for example, understood this whole coming to the real understanding of Passion of Christ and not going by what I saw in the movie. It was in one of the sermons only. A priest spoke about Passion of Christ, and so I think so that is where it is needed also for us to talk about these things.
Yeah. So, Vijay, you can.
Now that we have come to the end of this session, I would like to express our gratitude to Percival Holt. So thank you very much, Percival, for this inspiring session today. And we are grateful to you on behalf of the SIGNIS National Office Bearers and all the members of SIGNIS India. I thank you.
Thank
And
you. Thank
all
you.
the best for your ministry, because I know you as ICYM national president, and you have done a lot of work during those days, and you are continuing to do that work. That is something great, and happy about it, and wish you all the best, your ministry.
Thank you.
Thank you for the David for organizing this, secretary, this session, and contacting the resource person, everything. So thank you so much, and thank you, Sister Tessie, for your prayer and for your presence, and all those who participated today. We have less member. Earlier we used to have more, but this time we find few. But you are there from the beginning to the end. Now you are there, and thank you very much for participating in this program. So we'll inform you in the next session. Normally we have every month, 16th of every month, we have this session. We'll share the information later. Thank you so much.